Good morning, everybody. It's Nicola Scrivens here, East of England Ambulance Services Trust Chair. I wonder, Matt, whether you can move us on to the next slide, the welcome slide, to make sure that everything's working. Thank you very much. Perhaps you could just switch to show our participants that a real person exists behind the slide there, and so just make sure that people can see that I'm speaking to them, because we are predominantly going to be using slides this morning. If I can talk just a little, there we are. If we could just talk a little bit about the process today. This is, of course, quite novel that we're doing a virtual AGM and public meeting, but I'm absolutely delighted to see that people are in attendance. The technology has been tested before, and it does work really, really well, but the only downside is that it is a little bit of a talking head, so I'm the chair and I'll do the introductions. But when the slides are on, the difficulty is that we can only show the slides as opposed to both someone who's talking to them. So we'll work within that. At the end, there'll be an opportunity for people to be seen and for you to ask questions. But because of this structure, it does mean to say that we'll have to run through in this rather singular way. But first of all, I just wanted to say that I join you from my own isolation here in Cambridge, but I wanted to say that I'm extremely proud to be presenting here for the very first, for me, AGM of this magnificent trust. It's very exciting times. There's been so much hard work in terms of our progress for the year, and I think the slides that you're going to see and the discussion that we're going to have with the executive team will reinforce really the fantastic progress that's been made in the trust in the last year. There are three things that I really wanted to say, though, in terms of just pulling attention to. Firstly, a huge thanks to all our staff and volunteers, the people that actually make this fantastic performance happen. We've been in the midst of a pandemic since obviously March, and we're now currently planning for our response taking us through the winter. Without the excellent work and the hard work and commitment of everybody that works in the organisation, through clinical staff, non-clinical staff, and all the support and managerial roles that pull together to make the sometimes impossible possible, I have to say my heartfelt thank yous to you all for everything that you've done during the year. It's been very difficult times personally and also professionally, but thank you. I'm really proud to highlight the great performance that we've had during the pandemic and the strong performance improvements that we had leading up into March. And I know that Dorothy and Marcus will be talking more about that, but there's so much in terms of positive progress that it's been quite amazing during these really difficult times. And importantly as well to note, which we'll talk about as well, is that the sustained improvement has been based upon some really great transformational activity that is put in place and some good foundations for growth and further development that take us through the rest of this year and onwards in our improvement plan for the next 3 years. All of that comes about through people pulling together and working as a team, and so I commend to you the report and accounts that are about to be presented through to you, and we'll meet again at the end of this session and be able to answer any questions at that point. So on this, I'll pass over now to Dorothy, the Chief Executive of the Trust. Thank you. Dorothy, you're on mute.
Sorry, so disappointed we all can't be together in a room. So an annual event is a great opportunity when we get together and we present our year, which we're proud of, and also we can just to have a good conversation. So sorry that this year is as it is, but hopefully next year we'll all get back in the room together. So on the back of what the chair said, absolutely want to commend every member of our staff, support services, frontline, AOC, everybody. What a tremendous year of everybody pulling together, and I think it's been quite an exciting year and certainly an adrenaline rush for many of us, where we found ourselves not only facing doing our improvement work, but also coming into COVID, which was you know, a surprise for all of us, but an organisation that really stepped up. And there's a huge thank you to volunteers, you know, and also many people who came in to help us, which I'll just highlight as we go through these first couple of slides. So massive thank you to everybody. Matt, do we see the slides up on the screen? Are we going to put them up, or shall I just continue to talk through them? Yes. So there's one of our tremendous volunteers there, and telling us what he experiences of working as a CFR. Absolute great credit to him and all colleagues. John is just such a stalwart for us and tremendous. Should we have the next slide up? And this next slide highlights some of the achievements that we've had in year. I'm just going to pick out a few to talk about for those of you who may be on the phone and can't see the slide. So outstanding care for staff to patients. Well, what an achievement. And we've been able to sustain that through many trials and tribulations and challenges. So, you know, this is tremendous achievement. Medicines management, safety and security. We've been talking about making changes to our medicines management safety for quite some time, and now we've implemented and rolled out a whole new model. Social workers in our control room. We've been trialing a number of different partners working with us, and this has been a great success, as have other professions coming to work for us, nurses, etc. So, but this has been one of the big things that we've been able to actually really celebrate, because we know that we work as part of a health system, and this is a really important thing, to be able to use that expertise for the benefit of our patients, and also for our staff to be able to have that expertise to pull on. Respect campaign for patients who lack capacity. This is a really important one, because as we know, when we're dealing with patients who you know don't have that capacity, how do we use our skills and our our ability to be able to help them in their time of need? Really good. Heart recognition for life-saving skills. Again, a tremendous achievement. Volunteer conference. We held a volunteer conference last September, and it was up to 300 people came, and it was tremendous to hear, you know, that voice. And we heard this at the annual general meeting last year, and I made a personal promise to get involved with my team to actually improve things for our volunteers. I think that we've made a lot of improvements from listening at that event, and however, there's a way to go. But we also held a virtual conference recently, which was an exciting new venture for us, and we hope to hold another one very shortly. Winter targets, really important, because this is about access for our patients. We met all of them last winter, so Marcus Bailey and the team and others, great achievement. We've been able to increase our patient-facing hours, and these, as you know, are the number of hours that we have available for our patients to be able to provide that access day in, day out. This has increased significantly over the year, and you know, again, without being able to put out those hours, we can't actually deliver the service we want to deliver. So great achievement there. A lot has gone on around our value for money opportunities, and there's been a business case that was worked up many years ago that's now being realised, and our Make Ready rollout has now been in train for the last year at a fast pace, and I want to thank all colleagues for what they've delivered, because it has been tremendous. We're just, by March of next year, we'll have rolled out 9 sites, and that's a great achievement. And any of you who get the opportunity, please visit one of our Make Ready sites, whether it be Southend, whether it be Chelmsford, because actually it's a very exciting model to have a look at, and it makes such sense to have everything in one place to be able to get those vehicles and those staff out and turned around very quickly. So a lot there. And also our cost improvement program. We implemented a new methodology last year, which we're embedded, and to be able to help us deliver on efficiencies changing for future years. So Matt, if we could have the next slide up, please. I thought it would be very helpful. Normally we hold this conference earlier, but we're almost more than halfway through the year, and I thought it might be just very useful just to have a look at some of the achievements in year. Obviously, some of them I've talked about in terms of COVID, which we have really stepped up as an organisation and actually used it as an opportunity to be able to accelerate some of the change projects we wanted to implement. We brought in an awful lot of new folks, military, fire, other people just from community who came in and joined us to be able to increase our workforce numbers. And I'm ever so grateful for this. And I want to really commend our staff who welcomed these new people into our organisation. And can I say, at tremendous speed. So it was just like we knew we had to increase the numbers to be able to provide that safe service. All of these people came in. Our HR team were fantastic at being able to process them really quickly and get them in. But the welcome was tremendous. And if you look at some of them have left us gardens behind. Some firefighters over in Hertfordshire was fantastic. Some of them have sent wonderful letters to the team, and others, I have to say, have joined our bank, which is fantastic because that helps us to increase our workforce. So I'm ever so grateful for that. We're working on a lot of things around improving the skill set and the capability for our folks, and we're rolling out some leadership programs at present for our staff. Our aspiration and our ambition is to become outstanding for well-led, but this is a journey. It's not something you achieve just overnight, and it's something that the board are very excited of and we're very excited about, but we've got to put a lot of effort into doing that, and that's really important. But having the right numbers of staff to be able to release staff to go on courses or to take part in them, or to even just have the headroom and not to be exhausting them with too many shifts is really important. So that's on board. Workforce numbers, I just want to give you a quick outline as to in past years, and certainly when I was at the annual general meeting last year, this was a key topic, was that we were losing as many folks as we were bringing in. And of course, you know, that's just not good for anybody. It's not good for the folks who are coming in, and it's not good for us. We're now in a positive position with a couple of hundred staff more than we're losing, and we're also seeing our retention rates go up. So this is good, and we're listening as an organisation to why people would leave us. And of course there are those. I have conversations with every man and woman who wants to retire, and my first thing is, why would you retire? You need to come and do some shifts. So, you know, it's really important that we try and retain as many folks as we can, and understand if we're not getting something right, then we need to fix it. And I spend quite a lot of time listening to staff about their issues as to, you know, where we're getting it right, but also where we're not getting it right, and what we can do to help on that. We've also seen a shift in our sickness levels, where our sickness levels have improved actually, or where people actually are feeling more supported, morale has been better. Again, this is feedback from our staff. And I want to commend all of the managers and our LOMs locally, our AGMs, our GMs, our sector heads, because they really care about their folks, and they want to be able to provide the right environment that people can feel well, and well-being is a really big important part of life in the workplace. So that's really good. I'll be speaking later on, Matt, do you want to put up the next slide? I'll be speaking later on about our corporate strategy. But again, I have a slide here, and I've mentioned many of these things already around what our continuous improvement journey looks like. And that positive culture for us as an organisation is really important. We want to be seen as an organisation that's open, transparent, respectful, and that actually people can come to work feeling safe and enjoy their job. That's what we're working on. And we launched our clinical strategy, and we've launched many of our strategies which underpin our corporate strategy. So I'll come back to that later. But another important thing that's happened for Eeast is our collaboration with other health partners, and being that lead in the system is where we want to be, because what we do know is our ambulance service covers 6 regions. You know, we've 20 plus hospitals in our area, but you've only got 1 ambulance service, and you've got a lot of really important folks who work in it. And what can we do to help our system? And what can we do to work with our primary care colleagues differently? So I have a number of colleagues in our organisation, from ops, from training, from clinical, who are working on that model to say, yes, we want to be leading and working with our STPs and our 6 regions in a way that really adds value for our patient, because that's what this is all about. That's what we're here to do. It's patients. And the other part that we heard very loudly from our staff actually when we did some work around corporate strategy was how people are interested in a sustainable organisation and the green economy actually, and what we were doing to actually have a look at waste within our organisation, because we all look at it nowadays, don't we, in a very different light. So an awful lot going on there as well. A lot more content, as I say, later on around our corporate strategy. But I again thank you to all our staff who've contributed to the fast ride this year of change, but much more to come. Thank you. I'll hand over to Kevin. And there's another one of our staff. I just like in between we've put quotes from our folks to share with you throughout the presentation today, because it's really, this is what it's all about. This is the team within East, so it's great to see what Cynthia has said. So we'll hand over to Kevin, our finance director, for the annual account. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Matt. If you can click off my lovely picture, please, onto the next slide. Thank you. Thanks, Matt. I know this is obviously the highlight of what people dial in for, is the annual accounts every year, but I'll try and give you a flavour of where we were financially last year, and some of the detail behind that. There's clearly a lot of detail in the annual accounts, and quite happy to take any questions that people want to email to us outside of the meeting, because clearly there'll be some detail. But if there's anything anyone is particularly interested in, please do let us know. I think the principal highlight for the trust for last year was that we ended with a small surplus. That may be a bit of a surprise to those people who followed our board meetings last year, and for much of the year we were indicating a deficit position. The change in position was really the receipt from the regional NHS office of some what they call financial recovery fund monies. Now these are monies that were held centrally within each region to support NHS services across that region, and basically because the trust achieved the set targets, albeit that was a deficit for us within the year, and also our colleagues in the rest of the East region achieved all their targets, the Eastern Regional NHS body was able to release that money to us. And I'll come to that slightly a bit more details later on. As I say, I think we started the year with a plan which we knew was going to be a deficit. It very quickly emerged that some of the risks in that plan crystallised, primarily around the resource levels that we needed for our provide a safe service to patients, but also some of our commercial contracts, our PTS contracts, were extremely challenged. And whilst we were able to negotiate some improvements to them later on in the year, at the start of the year that was quite a challenge for us. And with the help of NHS England and Improvement colleagues, we engaged Pricewaterhouse. I appear to have been muted then, sorry, I don't quite know what happened. As I said, with the support of our NHS England and Improvement colleagues in the regional office, we were able to engage PricewaterhouseCoopers to come and help the trust with a recovery plan, which wasn't just around financial recovery, it was also the performance recovery and improvement, much of which, the results of which you've been able to see in the last few months. So just sort of moving through and onto the figures, as you can see, there was a substantive increase in income for the year, and I'll come to a bit more detail on that on following slides, but just to sort of highlight on this particular slide 1 or 2 points. As you can see, what we call A&E income is predominantly the money from our main 999 contract we have with our CCG commissioning colleagues. As you can see, a substantive increase there, which was in recognition of our continuing sort of growth, if you like, and to deal with our activities. It's reflective of the contract that we had agreed with them following the independent service review 3 or 4 years ago, which indicated the need for increased resource to us as an ambulance service. A couple of other points just to note on there. As you can see, there's a line there for additional pension contribution central funding. That was in relation to the NHS as a whole changed the contribution levels that employers have to make to each employee's pension, and this was therefore funded centrally. So we received that income, which was offset against some costs that we had as an equal and opposite, but it stands out as it was a particularly different item, if you like. The other point to note in that top half of the table is you can see the beginning of the COVID income. Obviously in March was when we first really felt the impacts and first took a number of steps to deal with the potential impact of COVID, and that first sort of 1.3 million there was recognised as our costs that we had incurred in March as a result of that. Clearly that's continued on into 2021, and that will be a substantial part of my report next year. I think the other thing just to note on that table is in the bottom half of the table, you can see what I've referred to there as that financial recovery fund, that 11.5 million, which was released from the NHS regional reserve, which enabled us to reach break even. But as I say, it was recognition of the fact that we met our plans and our deficit position was understood and the reasons behind that. Just move on to the next slide, Matt. As I say, I've covered most of these areas, but you can see there the movement from one year to the next in terms of our income. The other figure includes obviously that financial recovery fund and that pension that I noted to you on the previous slide. I think it's also worth mentioning that we've seen an increase in education and training income. That's sort of a result of our colleagues within training, the additional work they're doing, plus further work with Health Education England and a use of the apprenticeship levy. So that will, we hope, continue to increase. If I can move on to the expenditure side, which is obviously what keeps me awake at night in particular. But again, I've highlighted there, this is the first of a couple of slides. These are, if you like, what we'd call frontline costs. So the guys and girls in green and in the call centres and all the other direct support staff, such as our fleet personnel and estates personnel that keep the wheels on the road, for want of a pun. And as you can see, there's all those areas substantially increased. Again, our use of private ambulance increased. You can see that from those figures. But also, I think, to reflect some of the additional work that goes on in support of that front line, so the additional equipment and things like that we use. If you move on to the next slide, please, Matt. As you can see there, as I mentioned, an increase in education and training costs. That figure isn't covered by our directed education and income, training income. We do actually support our own training to a large degree. I think I meant to mention on the income as well, you can see a slight growth in our PTS and commercial services, obviously something that we continue to look at and hopefully will continue to secure further contracts. I think for the first year, for a number of years, we saw an increase in our corporate and support costs, and that was partly recognised as a result of the recovery plan work, some of which costs are in there. And it was noted, I think, that many of our support and corporate areas were benchmarked very low in cost terms compared to other ambulance services across the country, and recognised that we were running very lean as an organisation. There is, as I say, part of those costs are an increase from that work on the recovery plan, but a significant element in there, over £1 million, is an increase in our IT and information directorates, which I think it was recognised that we've perhaps underinvested in IT in earlier years, and our new Chief Information Officer was worked particularly hard to achieve some what we call digital aspirant funding, which we're going to benefit from this year. We benefited from on capital last year, and I'll come to that, but we've got some further income that he's been able to achieve, and part of that doing that was to beef up, if you like, our spend in that area. Also some additional spend across our HR and workforce directorate, which again we recognised had been under substantial pressure and needed further investment. I think the other cost element there, that looks a significant figure, but if you bear in mind that includes that that pension, the pension side of the costs that I highlighted on the income side. So if we can move on to the next slide, Matt, which talks about our capital expenditure. This is the investment we make in sort of, if you like, hard and fast things as opposed to our day-to-day expenditure. And the trust was able to spend nearly £10 million on capital expenditure, which was more than we internally generate as available funds, because we were able to secure additional funds, as I've mentioned, the digital aspirant, but also some recognition from NHS centrally around our estates projects. So you can see a major investment in our in estates there is the Make Ready programme, which you know, we know is a key plank to our future development and our future efficient running of the service, and I think really benefits frontline colleagues from what that service provides. In addition to that, you see other estates works there includes station refurbs and work to enable our introduction of our new routers that we had for our frontline staff, and to achieve that capacity for the new stations. As I've mentioned, the digital aspirant funding, you can see significant expenditure there on digital transformation. The IT projects further down are, if you like, more day-to-day type projects. So that is replacement of our telephony system and our network systems. So again, really good achievement of an investment for the future, and some of those projects continue on into our current year. Next slide, please, Matt. Then this slide looks at our cost improvement programme, as Dorothy mentioned that in her narrative, and you can see the trust, we achieved nearly 7 million savings from our cost improvement programme, and that we probably were aiming for about half of that originally, but with the introduction of the additional governance and support we had from that team and the new PMO team, we're able to really push that on. 6.9 represents 2.1% of our income, which some people might think is relatively low, but in actual fact, the NHS target for the year was 1.1%. So the trust achieved it over and above what we were originally, what the system was asking for. And you can see that from the graph there, there's a number of areas that contribute to that. I think emergency operations, we managed to achieve around about 3 million savings, and probably the biggest two areas of that were around how our efficient and use and utilisation of our private ambulance services, but a significant one was also our out of service reduction. So when our ambulances need to stand down for various reasons, be it restocking or cleaning and that sort of thing, we were really able to push some savings through on this, and this benefited from the Make Ready service, and you can see the link to that capital investment, which is helping to produce recurrent savings to the trust. I think just at the bottom there is a list of the previous years that the trust, the amount that the trust has saved in previous years, and you can see the significant impact that this has had on the trust in terms of saving requirements. Finally, just a couple of slides more sort of, if you like, statutory technically things. So we have a number of statutory duties financially, which we were able to meet all of those, and they're listed there. I think obviously the main one being that break-even position, but that was, again, as I say, very much supported by the system, but because we were, our position was understood and agreed. And I think final slide, Matt, please. So just to note that obviously this isn't just me presenting these figures and making them up. We do actually have a full audit from an external body, which comes in and looks at our accounts and makes sure they were fully reflective of our costs and that they're recorded correctly. And as you can see, we had an unqualified opinion on those. And they also noted that our value for money arrangements were satisfactory under the NHS rules. As I say, that's probably the sorry, just one final point on the bottom there. By the time the audit happened, obviously we were in full COVID, so I think this is a national position that's taken across NHS bodies. There was a note in most accounts to say that obviously the impact of COVID was still very much unknown, and the effect it could have on the organisation for the future was unknown. So I think it's a bit of a technical point, but just something that I think all auditors wish to make. So that's the end of my slides. As I say, if anyone's really interested in the accounts, I'm very happy to take any questions if you're happy to email them to us. I'm not sure who I'm passing on to next. Sorry.
Yes, so to Marcus, I believe. Could I just ask? Chair? I wonder if I could just ask Matt. I mean, is it just me, or is everybody seeing the full slide, or are they just seeing part?
Everybody publicly, Dorothy, is seeing the full slide.
Lovely.
Your screen is slightly different because you're in the producer, so fear not.
Good. No, good. I just wanted to check. Okay, thank you.
So we're passing. So it's Nicola here, back in. So we're going to pass to Marcus now, who's going to be talking about our patients.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks everybody, and welcome. So a time to kind of look back, reflect, and also look forward on here as well. We are a people business, and that people business really important for that, both for our patients, but also importantly for our staff who look after our patients. Next slide, please, Matt. You know, this for us is made up of many people and many experiences that we have, both from us internally, but also importantly from the people that we work with, both our partners, volunteers. And I will also touch on COVID because it kind of came in at the end of last year, but also some reflections and some learning behind that as well. Our journey with anyone getting an ambulance or an ambulance attendance is how a call is answered, and therefore the chain of events that then happen from that call. And sometimes we don't realise the people who go into getting a clinician and an ambulance by the side of you, or indeed, I guess, being dealt with on the telephone by our hear and treat clinicians within there. It's the sum of many parts, with each person, each individual coming together, whether it be preparing our services or whether it be delivering our services, all for one thing, which is about our patients. So at the centre of everything that we do with regards to how we look to structure, how we look to respond, and the quality measures and everything that we set out to do is always about getting up in the morning to look after our patients, and importantly within that is about our staff. Next slide, please, Matt. So just kind of an overview really in terms of the scale of what we do, covering the counties that we do across the region, and kind of our responses within there as well. And just to think about that in the context of last year, and what does that mean for us? Over 800,000 calls from the public and professional, and that's just through our 999, so our call handlers undertaking those calls. We've been able to send nearly 750,000 responses to patients in the course of that 12-month period, and that is a real phenomenal kind of level of response that we're able to undertake. And that is on top of preparing and undertaking for any major or significant incidents that would be part of that, or that we plan for as well. And in our control room, that if we send an ambulance, we also deal with a number of patients where we look to give advice, guidance and support on the telephone. And we can see that from last year through from April through to March this year, really the increase in the focus of our clinicians as we increase the clinical workforce in the control room, but also about how we really develop our models of care moving forward to get the right care, right place, right time for our patients. Again, really important. And sitting behind all of that is a control room team that are are phenomenal and fantastic in what they've done. The challenges, the seasonal effects. So we obviously think about those who respond physically to patients, but actually those who respond technology wise, again, do a very, very fundamental and vital job for us. Next slide, please, Matt. So what does that translate to for last year in terms of our response? So we know last year we did not achieve national standards, and I'll come on to where we are shortly. But we know that there are a number of challenges in there, and we know that from our public board meetings we've spoken in the past about our strategic risks, particularly around workforce, and making sure that we are sustainable moving forward is about increasing our workforce numbers. And those workforce numbers really, really important, because you need good clinical staffing supported well to be able to respond on ambulances to get to patients. And that gives a flavour of the challenge that we are there to know. We have absolute work in progress to do. We know what areas of improvement. But as Dorothy had said, and where we look at what we've achieved in COVID in this year, a phenomenal step change for this organisation to deliver some continuous periods of national standard performance. And when we say performance, is this about time? Access is really important for patients, but behind every single time measure is a patient, and it is always difficult and it is always upsetting when we're not able to provide our communities with the response that we wish to in a timely fashion. And time does equal patient outcome when it comes to areas such as cardiac arrest, stroke, heart attacks, but also from a patient experience and comfort perspective as well. Next slide, please, Matt. The other bit within operations team is clearly our patient transport. So this is, people historically refer to it as our non-emergency patient transport. It is patient transport because actually we also have paramedics, technicians, and a range of ambulance care assistants who work within that, who provide transport for people who are very unwell, but just they do not come through a 999 system. And if we think about the areas that we do look after across the trust, a number of patients that we look after, and some of them very regularly, to build up good relationships and support, which I think is really important when it comes to times and difficulties, both for them as individuals, but also in times such as COVID, where things are very different, things have been very different. And when we look at that, providing over 7,000 patient journeys a week is a phenomenal kind of experience that we undertake, and something that may not always be within the forefront of people's minds. And the other bit that, you know, our staff within PTS do an incredible job, along with being supported by volunteers as well. Thanks, Matt. Next slide. So we talk about call management, and I've spoken about call handling, and we look at that in terms of some of the stats. And I guess the reason for painting this is, you know, there is a lot going on. There is always a lot going on across a 24-hour clock time period, and really the continual work that we undertake both to support staff, develop and increase our staffing levels. Because actually, from our point of view, our 999 call handlers, we are answering calls in a mean, so a statistical average of 1 second. On average across the trust, we answer 2 calls every second. And from our point of view, our call handlers provide not only arrival and pre-arrival instructions for somebody giving birth, but also attempting to resuscitate somebody as well. And that for us is really the overall start of that chain of survival. And when you total it together, on top of our physical attendance, the totality of how our clinicians in our control room support over 60,000 patients last year, really to support them to get the right care, whether it be advice or to signpost them to another service, again is a phenomenal achievement, and something that may not be totally obvious to members of the public. The other I guess the other team who have, particularly through COVID, have kind of really supported us well, supported the community and supported our own staff, is through our commercial call centre. So not only do they take the calls for PTS booking, but they've also supported us with management and call management related to COVID, and that has been a phenomenal success and really a support that we could only have dreamt of. So some great work there as well. Next slide, Matt. Thank you. Again, another cornerstone to the work that we do for our communities is actually the support we get from our volunteers. So this is just a real small snapshot for us of really what does it look like this year in COVID, but to recognise that our community first responders are an integral part of how they help communities and how we work to support them to do good within there as well. And this is just our category 1 attendances where a first responder was on scene. This doesn't take into account the massive amount of hours they give up willingly to be available, to be called, for fundraising, for support behind all of this. And for every patient that you see there, that has improved the chance of survival in life-threatening conditions, which is category 1. But also for every patient, that is an hour of volunteering time that is spent looking after patients, and that is really a phenomenal kind of gift that the community gives itself, and the passion that sits behind that, supporting our dedicated staff, is the dedication of the volunteers that we work with. And it's also really important that volunteering within East, we are absolutely gathering pace on, and I think the learning through COVID and the people who want to support, volunteering is not just community first responders. We are supported by volunteer chaplains, volunteer car drivers within PTS, our community engagement group, all of the people willingly giving time. Why? Because actually they truly believe that their communities and their patients, the patients will benefit from that as we move forward. Next slide, Matt. So the other important bit is our partnerships. So actually us delivering patient care can only ever be, as we'd said, the sum of lots of kind of parts to it. And in the background, the work that we do with our air ambulance charities, our basics charity, which is volunteer paramedics, doctors and nurses who support and assist us within that, and also some of the areas and the schemes have volunteer first responders. We operate and we get support from our police and fire colleagues, and during COVID particularly we have seen that in abundance to assist us to maintain our response, to look after the communities to which they serve and that they work within, and that we all live within as well. And our work and our strategic work with the 6 police forces within our region is also growing with pace, really, I guess, to accept and work together on some of the difficulties and challenges that we both face from some of the demand, but also how do we deal with our vulnerable, some of our most vulnerable patients within our community as well. The other bit is that our workforce, and again really important for both career development of our own staff, but also about our workforce development needs as well, is our partnership with our higher education partners. Really from a professional point of view and also organisational view, the connection that we have in order to develop professional, academic, critical thinking opportunities, job satisfaction, and also advancing practice across pre-hospital and urgent care. Without those partnerships and without the whole kind of our partners coming together, this would not allow us to do some of the stuff that we do, some of the transformation that we are able to achieve. Next slide, please, Matt. Thank you. So I'm going to touch on COVID very briefly. Why? Because COVID hasn't finished and COVID is still ongoing. I guess the first bit I want to say is thank you. And my thanks is not only for COVID, but generally for everything that we have done last year and into this year as well. Without the support, without the dedication of our leadership teams, with our staff, our volunteers, and the people we work with, and also the communities to which we serve, we would not be able to achieve the stuff that we achieve. And we know that there is a journey, and we continue on that journey. But what we saw through COVID was some of the best in people, and some of that best in people that we knew was there, but actually just get shine when people want to and come out to support the communities to which that they work within. And we put COVID into kind of a lifetime and a generational response. What you saw from the best and the greatest things within people is that this is the biggest response plan this trust and the NHS has ever had in a generation. This is about preparing for something that we had no real idea that would happen or the impact. But what we saw was new ways of working. We saw the ability to look at improvement and sustainability. We've looked at testing, building our resilience. We've challenged ourselves on how we move at pace, how we come together, how we break down any barriers and silos. And I guess the other poignant bit, because it's also very personal to people who are watching, people who have experienced COVID in the last few months in this country as well. About kind of life events, including for us and colleagues about Neil and Barry, two of our active members of staff who lost their lives during COVID as well, and therefore becomes personal for everyone. And I thank everyone, and I thank the staff, particularly their colleagues for Neil and Barry, who were so supportive during that time. Thanks, Matt. Next slide. So the important bit is, what have we done? Well, the we means that actually we've never done this on our own. Not one person, not myself, not anyone in the organisation can ever say on their own they've achieved absolutely everything. Dorothy supports us to achieve what we need to do as an exec team, and we as an exec team support our teams to develop further. Coming together creates and enhances the power of good. And when we step back to say, what have we been able to do? We've really been able to try and push forward, I guess, from last year, some of the challenges that were put, and rightly so, at the public meeting from our volunteers, from our CFRs, about how do we push things forward. And we have taken that. So again, still a journey and still some of the areas we need to focus on. But we've really tested about how do we help volunteering get a prominent role, but how do we also support and assist in terms of scope of practice. We've seen joint working with some of our other partners, fire and rescue particularly, around how do we get them to assist and how do we work together for responding to patients who've fallen. Some more technical rescues for patients in the community as well. Why? Because this is always about proving our response to patients, our experience for patients as well. Thanks, Matt. Next slide. And Dorothy's touched, again, what we learned from COVID, it gives us opportunities. So our first virtual CFR conference. So today we deliver our annual public meeting via Teams, the ability to make things more accessible, the new ways of working, new appetite that we have, the focus in areas of development to really get on with some of our transformation and pace. And Dorothy will cover that in some of the strategic bits of why we're doing some of what we're doing. We've also been able to look at and assist, our frequent caller, high intensity service user team, supported over 130 patients with specific plans to try and assist them. We are building our staff survey improvement plan. We know work to do, but we know that we're working, and that requires that local leadership. It requires that local focus, that local engagement in order to do those as well. And in the background, the things that help us do that and the achievements and support, we've been able to access our directory of service, so looking for alternative care pathways and avenues of support for our communities used by our clinicians within there as well. And again, a real positive when it comes to the technology enablement, the systems, the ways of working that we have as well. Thanks, Matt. Next slide. So globally, what have we been able to do? So I think for us is operationally in our control room, the appetite and the need to look to change, to undertake trials, to undertake pilots, to put a methodology within there, really phenomenal. Because actually we know that health and the environment, health, social care and the environment we operate in is changing. It's ever changing and dynamic, and we need to match that. We need to match that in a methodical, safe, effective way to evaluate. But the opportunity to change has been phenomenal. We also focus on what makes a difference. So actually the other bit for us is ensuring that the efforts and the focus we place as a team and as an organisation is really there to support and place the patients at the centre of what we're trying to achieve. Well-being of staff and volunteers, and John will talk about that from a kind of a staff and an HR perspective. But I think it's also important that we hear and we recognise that looking after people is fundamental, whether it be career development or whether it be from a health and well-being perspective, or when people are unfortunately unwell, that we do this in a supportive, a compassionate way. Leadership development, why? Because it's so important that we equip our leaders to be the best they can be, but also to support and develop their staff around them, and also lead what is a big organisation through any challenges or changes that it may have. They are central to this, they are central to the engagement, and they are central to the support. The other really important bit is, if you triangulate from the performance of the finance, is also about quality. And quality of our service, our experience, our metrics, our triangulation of what are our patients telling us, both in compliments, complaints, concerns, incidents, opportunity to learn. It's so important that we've been able to start the harnessing of this to really make some great changes for our patients, to really focus on what best practice looks like in terms of patient care, but also give us the good challenge to tie into the improvement work, to always look to do better, to always look to improve, and to always look to change. Thanks, Matt. Next slide. So, and next slide, thank you. So it's not necessarily going to be possible for me to list every single thing that I'd like to do and we're going to focus on for this year, because I think there are lots of things. And why is there lots of things? Because the opportunity exists. But I think I know where our key priorities need to be from an operational perspective to support patients and our staff and our volunteers. So we need to balance, and we need to focus very heavily on how we support patient access through performance, workforce and quality. We need to balance all of those, and we need to maintain that as a key focus for the organisation. Career progression, recruitment and retention, again, whether it be for our employed staff or on volunteers, absolutely central to where we need to be. Within that is also about our wellbeing response for staff and volunteers. So important that we maintain that as a development, and that we make sure that it really is through, whether it be through our policy work, whether it be through occupational health, whether it be through culture, whether it be through leadership, all of these really important. Another bit for me, which I kind of passionately believe in, is how we support learners better, how we support people moving into new roles, how we support that transition from education into clinical practice. This organisation has so many learners that we need to develop to the next kind of generation of staff and clinicians, that we have a responsibility to make sure we get that right. Also, we're really keen to make sure we pick up on the work and continue our response to patients in mental health crisis. We know that from an organisation, sector and working with our partners, this is something that we really need to make sure we get it right, we continue to improve. We really want to tie that in and really look at how we evaluate and identify kind of how we enhance our high intensity service users and the work that we've done with employing social workers as a trust. I think this is a great initiative, and really what we're trying to do with all of this is look after our staff, look after our patients, get the right care in the right place at the right time. And the other bit is we want to do more, and we want to improve in patient transport services. That, for me, absolutely fundamental. If we move forward, that has to be a key complementary piece of work that we do, to say we are delivering the emergency and also our patient transport side of the care within East of England as well, and we want to be better, braver and bolder with all of those. So as I end, Chair, to hand back, I kind of, the reflective year is a journey, the reflective year is one of opportunity, and the future holds for us a number of challenges, but a number of positive opportunities as well. And I genuinely can't thank our staff, our volunteers and the leadership teams within that, because they are the ones who make it happen as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. A very reflective and holistic approach. And there's also there a quote bringing your piece to a close. We'll pass over now to John, who's going to cover workforce and wellbeing, and then we'll pause for questions from participants.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to everybody. My name's John Zeiss. I'm the Interim Director of Workforce here at East, and although it would have been very nice to see everybody in person for today's presentation, it's great that we're able to provide it through an interactive session such as this. So Matt, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So we'll be looking at our corporate strategy later on during the AGM, but one of the bits of our vision in there is to be an exceptional place to work, volunteer and learn. And we've developed a workforce enabling strategy for this year, and that has three key areas, three key aims in it that will help us to deliver on that objective. So they are to put into place robust plans to attract, recruit and develop our staff, support the well-being of our staff, and to give staff a voice in the organisation about their roles and how the organisation works going forward. So it's going to run through a couple of slides very briefly around the actions that we have taken, the achievements we've made, and some of the plans that we've got going forward to how we can realise those three key aims of the enabling strategy. And I think, you know, we've heard particularly from Marcus's presentation the importance of our people within East, both in terms of making sure we have sufficient resource to deliver the patient care that we need to do, the importance of the response that the organisation, our volunteers and partners have had through the COVID pandemic, and how important it is to develop and give opportunity to those that we employ and work with. So we can go to the next slide, please, Matt. Thank you. So this is looking at some of the key achievements that have happened so far. Now we're getting for halfway through the year, and it's broken down into those three key areas. So first one was around attracting, recruiting and retaining our staff. This has certainly been a key strategic priority for East in this year as in previous years, and we have outlined an ambitious recruitment programme to recruit more than 800 whole-time equivalent new frontline staff into the organisation, and we have an aligned workforce plan with training with our recruitment plans, and very pleased to say that so far we are more than on track to achieve our aim of recruiting over those 800 first frontline staff. We've also, through our COVID response recruitment campaigns and other bank recruitment campaigns, been able to onboard nearly 400 bank workers. And we've heard previously how the fire service, we work very closely with them during the pandemic response, and it has been fantastic to see how many of those fire service personnel have decided to join us on bank contracts following their experience of working with the trust. We've worked quite hard to remove some barriers to entry, so putting funding in place for those roles that require C1 driving licenses has been important in ensuring that we have a really good pipeline of staff coming into the trust. Also, we've been working hard to ensure that we retain those staff that we already have, and it's been good to see retention rates improve as this year has gone on. Developing our staff into new roles in the organisation and upskilling them is also really important. So we've been rolling out some pilots of career development opportunities in some of our areas, and I think that has seen a real desire amongst our staff to learn with us, to become a learning organisation and move on in their careers within East, which has been fantastic to see. We've also looked to upskill all of our line managers. We've had the opportunity to roll out over 30 new workforce related policies and procedures during 2020, and we've linked a large amount of management training to those, and we've had over 600 attendees. In fact, just got an update this morning, 843 attendees sessions have happened with over 300 individual line managers attending, so we've worked very hard there. Moving on to well-being and culture, which is the second of the key objectives that we had. Trust has a new outsourced occupational health provider for 2020, K's Medical, and we've been working with them to put in a clinically staffed 24/7 emergency support line that Trust staff members can access confidentially at any point. We've also been working hard with our wellbeing team, particularly through the height of our pandemic response, to ensure that staff can do things like take their annual leave, take a break, but have those well-being resources available to them to give them the resilience, the downtime, the support that they need during what has been a very challenging time for the organisation. Some of the things we're looking to do going forward is some wellbeing ambassadors. So they will be a peer support network that we're looking to embed in the organisation to offer support in addition to and appropriate signposting to resources that the trust already has for those staff members who maybe require some assistance with their own wellbeing or have concerns about themselves or a colleague. We've also been doing Spot the Signs training, so that's in conjunction with the Mind charity in Hertfordshire. They have been delivering through team sessions such as this one, some interactive training around spotting the signs and other suicide prevention techniques, and we've had over 340 members of staff have undertaken that training so far. Finally, before we go on to the next slide, we're working very closely with our occupational health providers to have a really good quality digital workflow system for our occupational health referrals, which will ensure that those staff that need a referral are able to get one more quickly, and we get the information back from our occupational health provider to the appropriate people more quickly, so we can better support our staff in returning to work. We go to the next slide, please, Matt. So next one, to finish it off on the wellbeing and culture, we've worked with some external providers around some sessions to look at the culture within Eeast, and there'll be some further work going on as we move into the autumn around how we can build on those positive aspects of culture. Some of the things that Marcus alluded to in his session around the fantastic response that we have seen from the organisation in wanting to deliver better and the best patient services that we can do. And keeping up with things like appraisals. The trust has seen a fantastic increase in the number of staff being appraised in recent years, and we were still at over 80% of staff having had a current appraisal back in July, despite all the additional demands placed on the organisation at the time. The final section is around how we can give staff more of a voice in the organisation, how we can engage with them so that they have influence over both their own working lives, but an understanding and a way of engaging with the direction of travel for the trust overall. We saw a fantastic increase in response for the staff survey for 2019 compared to 2018, so up to 47%. We'd like to see continued improvement with that when the staff survey comes out in October and November of this year. We've launched a number of staff survey action plans, both on a trust-wide and local basis, and we're monitoring progress those through our monthly accountability sessions. Our trade union relationships have improved markedly during 2020, and it's been really encouraging and really positive to see really good engagement with our staff side partners. We've had regular meetings with them all throughout the initial stages of the pandemic response, and as I said earlier, we've been able to get over 30 new employee relations policies drafted and approved, and they've been really useful tools in being able to take forward some of the good work that we want to do in terms of supporting our staff, whether that's through sickness absence processes or any other sort of HR interaction. And finally, we've got a number of staff networks here at the Trust. We've just relaunched our All Women's East network, which has had its first meeting a couple of weeks ago to look to reinvigorate that. But it's been really pleasing to see, particularly our BMA network has been really involved in the risk assessment process as part of the COVID risk assessments, but also playing an active role in some of the recruitment and retention initiatives. We've rolled out reverse mentoring sessions in the last few weeks, and it's been great to see those staff networks having the opportunity, but also the desire and the capacity to get involved to make a real positive difference in some of the things that we're looking to do both this year and in coming years. And finally, we're looking to welcome back our EDI manager. I think looking forward, ensuring that Eeast represents the communities it serves in terms of the makeup of its staff, and its leadership team better represents the makeup of our staff is really important, and having a good EDI team, so equality, diversity, inclusivity team to help us do that is really important. So that concludes the highlights from the Workforce Directorate for the AGM. So I'm going to hand back to our chair for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, John, and thank you for structuring it around the key priorities as well in terms of our forward view. So we're just going to pause a little just to answer any questions from the public. I know that we've had one through, and I'm hoping, Marcus, that it has been supplied through to you, because it's a question around our response times. Do you have it in front of you, Marcus?
I do, thank you.
Can I, before you answer, Matt, can you pop Marcus on the screen if that's possible, because it's nice for people to see who they're talking to. Let's see. There he is. Thank you, Marcus.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks for the question. So I think, to be fair, there should be a focus on both. So
can you say what the question is? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Why is there a focus on the mean average response times when the 90th percentile seems to be more relevant to more people? So I think the answer is they're both relevant for slightly different reasons. So I always look at the 9 out of 10 kind, so the 90th percentile, the 9 out of 10 patients would get a response by this time. So if you look at category 1 by 15 minutes, but the mean or the average is saying on average our patients are getting a response of X, and both are really important, not just for patients but also about sensitivity within our service delivery. So there needs to be a patient, in effect, a patient safety overview, which is our 90th percentile of experience, along with how we are performing generally, and both a sign of pressure, performance, achievement, and also patience. When they did the trial and they did the ambulatory response program, they identified that from that point of view, it was to ensure that you got a distribution of response. You focused on the times that make a difference, so the shorter the time and the 90th and also the mean, but also I guess used it as a patient safety measure as well. So I think for me, is if it's come across that we only focus on one, the answer is no, absolutely. We look at both because they're important for patient outcome, they're important for experience, and they're also about patient safety and access as well at a wider level. So I'd agree with the comment, but also say that no, we do focus on all of those. Thanks, Joe.
Okay, thank you very much. We've had no other questions at the moment, so I think we'll move on to the last point on the agenda, which is titled Strategy, People and Trust. I don't know, Dorothy, are you going to do an introduction or straight to Nicola?
I think it's me.
Brilliant.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So we've heard a lot. In the presentation today about achievements this year, challenges that are upcoming, and a lot of improvement work still to do. So to underpin all of this work that we've been doing, have we got a vision? Yes. One of the and that's what I'd like to share with you now. One of the things our new chair did when she came in was she said, so tell me, where's our strategy for the future? She set us a deadline, and we set about developing that. And a lot of people have been involved in the development of this, both internally and externally. Our internal lead on this has been Nicola Ward, who's done a tremendous job at keeping us on track. And can I say, keeping us on track while we were doing COVID. So it was a huge piece of work. If I were in the room with you, I would want to hand everybody the booklet. It feels good, it looks good, and it is good, because it actually highlights our 5-year forward view. So I'd just like to, next slide please, Matt, around what is our vision. And we spent quite a lot of time on this. This was, next slide, Matt, if you would. Outstanding care, exceptional people every hour of every day. This was really important to us, and this is where we absolutely wanted to focus our work going forward. I'll hand over to Nikki to pick up the rest of the presentation, and then I'll just come back to you. There are a lot of slides we could do, but we just can't due to time. But I just want to say this lady has done a tremendous job in keeping us all aligned and focused. Go ahead, Nikki.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate there are a few slides in here. I think the areas that I really wanted to bring out and emphasise today are around, firstly, to thank again our staff and our volunteers and our partners who took the time to respond to our consultation around our strategy. And I think one of the key things that I've explained to people as I've been sharing our strategy across the region is that truly shaped where we have ended up with our vision and our goals. We were able to understand the themes of what people were saying to us and reflect that really clearly in our vision and the goals that we now have. I think if we move on, Matt, please. I think this is a slide that I really wanted to summarise again about the how. So it's really fantastic to have a 5-year journey described of where we want to be. But the really key bit is about how we're actually going to deliver that. And I'd like to thank colleagues for a phenomenal amount of work that has gone on in developing, enabling, supporting strategies and plans that sit underneath those that actually describe how we're going to do it, so that the goals aren't just a set of words, albeit that they're important to us on a page, but we actually have the enabling strategies set out with clear actions and descriptions of their individual journeys that will deliver on those goals. And that's, I guess, the tangible bit around how we will deliver our strategy moving forward. And again, to reflect the amount of work, we started from a place of having not many to now having many, if not all now drafted, and many have gone through and been approved that you see here among the supporting strategies. And what we're doing now is working with our communications colleagues to share with you the areas at which we are delivering on and the things that are coming through, some of which that you've heard of today, for example, from John, we're making it an exceptional place to work, volunteer and learn. So we're really living these goals and this vision in the daily work that we do, and hope that you can see that from what colleagues have described today. So I'm conscious of time, but I'll leave it there. I think the remaining slides that we've got here, Matt, are just really underpinning our values that again have been described today, and a bit more about our journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Yeah, so I think this is what we are going to be living by and going forward. And I would really urge everybody who's on the call today to please go and look for our details. It's on the website, and we have the booklets spread out across the region. So you can get a booklet very easily. But very happy to supply one if anybody wants one. Please let us know. Nicola, I'm going to hand back to you.
Yeah, thank you. So perhaps we could go to my headshot. Thank you very much. This might not be pleasing. So we haven't had any other questions. It says the live event will continue in a moment. Is that correct, Matthew? There we are. Thank you. So we haven't had any other questions from the public. Is that correct, Emma?
No other questions, Nicola.
Thank you. So I just wanted to use a couple of minutes at the end of the AGM, because one of the important parts of the board is that we are a unitary board, and we've heard a lot there from the executive team in terms of the progress. So I just wanted to invite my non-executive colleagues, if anybody has anything to comment on what we've heard and seen. I know Carol Ann has something which she may want to say. Matt, if you can pull Carol Ann up, that would be really useful, who's our non-executive director with responsibility for chairing our People Engagement Committee.
Thanks very much, Nicola. I'm not sure I'm yet live, Matt, but I think that's because your live feed is frozen. Is that right? Brilliant. I think everyone can see me now. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to comment. I just wanted to say that I've been involved with the Trust for just over a year, And I really want to just congratulate the executive team and all of the people that work at the Trust for the fantastic progress that has been made in literally just 1 year. I've seen so much progress, whether it's the development around the strategy and the really clear thinking about where we need to go in the future, whether it's about the emphasis on the patient benefit and ensuring that we arrive at patients in line with targets and give them the very best experience. So I just wanted to congratulate everyone. I have one thing that I want to say I hope we're going to focus a little bit more on in the future, and that's fundamentally around the engagement agenda. You might expect me to say that as I am chair of the engagement committee. And what I particularly want to see is a real emphasis on patient and public involvement. It's fantastic to be able to have an AGM today, albeit not in person, involving the local community. But I really feel like we want to be working so much more closely with patients and the public to involve them in how our service develops in the future, so that we can truly be the most fantastic NHS organisation. So thanks very much, and congratulations again to everyone on the progress.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Matt, Alison would also like to make a contribution. And whilst you're pulling Alison up, Alison is a non-exec director who also chairs our transformation committee and also our remuneration committee. Hello, Alison.
Hi, thank you. Just wanted to say I've been in the trust for 2.5 years, and I've been really impressed, particularly in the last year, about the amount of improvement that has happened in terms of governance and in terms of putting the strategy in place and bringing all those strategies together under one cohesive corporate strategy. So that's been tremendous. I come from a technology background, so I'm quite excited about the fact that we've got this additional funding for technology, and I'm really looking forward to see how that technology is really going to improve the experience for both our staff, but most importantly for our patients as well.
Thank you very much, Alison. Thank you. So Matt, if you can just bring back to myself, we've had no other comments, so it just leaves me to wrap up. And well, actually, if you can put the final slide up, which is a quote from me from, I know it's a bit odd, from the strategy document. It just pulls out for me that how proud I am to be working for this organisation. But the vision that's been described there and our commitment to provide the outstanding care with exceptional people every hour of every day is exciting and within reach. I really genuinely believe that the foundations that have been put in place this year means that we're in a fantastic position to really exploit a great team, great focus and great commitment to making service that we provide to patients in our community so much better. So that brings us to an end. Thank you very much for everybody for the participation and for the hard work in putting this together. And we'll see you all next year. So thank you very much. Thank you.